working for global business,
Yeah.
working with a global brand, you bring a global perspective. So mentioning that consumer thing, how are we tracking as consumers? Are we sort of slightly ahead of the curve when it comes to globally? I sort of think about the fact that the US, they're still writing checks, you know.
They are.
Whereas I can't explain to my kids what my checkbook is. You know?
I had to order one last year before Westpac started to stop producing them or stop producing them as a heirloom. They will be in a glass container to break in case of emergency. In Australia, we're quite advanced in terms of consumer behavior, and that's why a lot of fintechs are becoming successful here. That's why a lot of big brands, such as MasterCard, are launching pay by account in Australia first, because the consumer behavior is ahead of the 8 ball. Thank you. My name is Chris. I'm from Split, Australia's first open banking payment platform. At Split, we're not rocket scientists, so I'm very humbled to be in a room literally full of them. But the idea behind Split was born out of throwing people out of planes. But as we looked at direct entry, the banking rails, very few people were actually innovating in that space. It's safe and reliable, but it's also blind and antiquated. And if you think off the back of a scathing banking commission, we have a preconceptual idea of banking. It's a legacy space, a sort of man-in-suit type of place where innovation is the last thing on their mind. The fact of the matter is it's just that with legacy systems, it's often harder to innovate. And that's where split payments fits in. If we think about what's happened, banks have been through, they all have, at least the top 8, digital transformation. But what is that? I mean, if they've all undertaken billion-dollar projects, ultimately for me it looks like there's just economies of scale, efficiencies, cost savings. Have they truly moved to digitize, or have we merely transformed some of the back-end systems? So that's the really interesting thing we have to think about. What I'm about to show you may disturb some of the audience. This is a real banking architecture. So stew on that for a second. What's really worrying about this is just home lending. This is not deposits or transactions. This is a very real schematic. And I'm wondering where I can plug in, my RESTful API and webhooks or streaming API. Is it doable? And is this the real challenge we face? By the way, I'd argue it isn't. And we'll talk to where I think banks are with their technology in a moment. But look, I mean, that's crazy. That's spaghetti. And that's what we often refer to it as there. Whilst fintechs have the technology, and we're really good at it, right? Banks still have the customers. 86% of the lending and transactional market is still controlled by the big 4. So I know we all feel there's a big enough piece of the pie to enjoy a very successful business, but think about that. Where are the customers? Even if the customers don't know it. Here's a Dolomite account. We often refer to these changes as the speed of innovation. Now, you'll see on this slide in front of you now that over the last 600 years, we didn't really rush our innovation. From the printing press through to landing on the moon, it took several hundred years. And even as late as the 1800s, the onset of X-ray technology, which benefited patients greatly. But as we approach the 21st century, look how much things changed. From computing to mobile technology to video capabilities and now to virtual worlds. If we put a health lens on this, things like telehealth, and we discussed this yesterday, enables us to bring cancer care treatments and clinical trials to a wider audience. And in the countries you're all joining from, we have a dispersed demographic, and these innovations in technology enable us to do much more.
We've seen cash slowly go out the window, and with things like Apple Pay, even credit cards are starting to slowly become abandoned as well. So how are you going to deal with this challenge? What does this mean for the credit card industry?
Yeah, look, it's even if you go before, we're becoming increasingly cashless because largely due to the pandemic that sort of amplified our fear of touching cash.
But think back to the emergence of alternative finance like buy now, pay later, those kind of things. There's a definite trend of consumers moving, off scheme, as it were, towards, better ways to manage their money without the financial pressures. And it's typically associated with a younger audience, but again, maybe due to the pandemic, we've digitized every demographic. Even in aged care, they're using virtual social centers to play mahjong now because they can't physically congregate. So this whole digitization lends itself beautifully to what's the simplest form of payment. How can it live within an ecosystem a consumer's comfortable with? And cash could never be in those ecosystems. So we're definitely seeing that trend, and this pay by account is playing towards that and keeping it simple, embedded on a platform, trusted and secure.
What I love about what you do and the companies you work with is the magic happens, and I don't actually really need to know how an internal combustion engine sort of is built. It's just at the end I get in the car and drive it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, this is what modern fintech is all about, and open banking has brought this to a fore where you ingest technologies via APIs, right? Just these simple connections, these pipes. And you're absolutely right. It could and does make it easier for large enterprise customers and small to medium-sized businesses to easily plug in these great fintech capabilities. And they should just work. And most of the time, they do.
Chris, it's always great to catch up with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.